Well, I just realized the biggest bug ever is over after years. When you switch from horizontal to vertical, it would get warmer or cooler, but finally, it's fixed. It's completely the same no matter how I'm turning. Wow, génial. It is here, it is finally here. After years of rumors, the A7V is in my hands and I had the pleasure of testing it on the field in real extreme conditions, fully drenched in the rain in the streets of Los Angeles and then across the Pacific. Anyways, my experience is what I want to share with you here using this camera. Who is this camera for? What were the good points I had using it? What are the bad points? What can be improved? And is this worth it or not? Ooh, there's a really good shot. Just one sec. One sec. Wait, comment 1 if you want to get a A7V, if you think this is a great addition, and comment 2 if you're already disappointed and you think it's overhyped. If you don't know me, my name is Pierre Tinamber. I'm a travel adventure photographer and the creator of the 30-day adventure to great photo, a step-by-step method for taking you from 0 to 1 to take photos that you love no matter what kind of gear you're using. We're covering everything from before you ever take a photo to after when you retouch the photo. The goal is that this is a one-stop shop for you to take great photos. So before you invest a few $1,000s in your camera, invest just a few $100s in your skills and they will really transform your photography, even maybe with the camera you have. Now, let's talk about the first thing I love about it, which is the new screen. Well, not only do we have a multi-flip screen in all directions, so we're like completely covered whether we want to be compact shooting like this or having it on the side or doing literally vlog style, everything is possible now with this camera. But what I love about it is not that. It is literally the improved resolution of that screen. It is something I've been waiting for such a long time, is to actually say, hey, this screen looks good. And for once it does. It's a $2 million screen. And honestly, on the field, it does make a difference. I much preferred that experience with that screen at the back, that monitor, than it was previously or even on other cameras. And I started to really feel it with the A1 II, the RX103, and now with the A7V, we're going in the right direction. Finally, Sony is stepping up the game of the screen. So that's already a good plus point. But the elephant in the room here is really the new sensor. Why the new sensor? Because we've got improved sensor, we've got also improved processing power, and the two chips have been combined into one, or three, maybe even with the AI. Everything is into one now, and it is faster, and it has a better, because it's a partially stacked sensor, it also has better readout speed. Well, all this to say that when you're taking photos, even with electronic shutter, you have way less distortion. So here are photos I took while panning with electronic shutter, and you can see the distortion is very minimum, which means you have less kind of rolling shutter of that distortion. And I really appreciate that, because nowadays we end up shooting in a lot of modes in electronic shutter. Better burst mode, to have pre-capture, to have a bunch of things that are only available when you're in electronic shutters. So if you have images in electronic shutter that are not really great, well, then it discourages you from using it. But now it's actually good, and I love it. There's very minimal distortion from what I looked at, and Sony was telling me, look, when you try it, you'll see, but you may actually be able to shoot everything in electronic shutter nowadays. Yes, Sony, but flickering. Flickering is still an issue, and that's why you have the mechanical shutter, which also something I appreciate here is it's been improved. If you remember correctly, we had between 100 and 200,000 shots that the mechanical shutter was rated for in the A7 IV, and now it is rated for 500,000 shots, which means hopefully we'll have a lot less issues with shutters breaking. If you remember when the A7 IV came out, that was an issue. It even happened a few years later. So yeah, yay! And on the field, that electronic shutter was so handy. You know, whether it was to shoot faster, use the pre-capture, use the burst mode. We'll get to that in a second. Honestly, I really appreciated that. And dynamic range, you may be asking, okay, dynamic range, yes, it's a plus point. We have 16 stops of dynamic range, but I feel personally that after 15, I've never been really frustrated with the dynamic range of a camera, because I feel like I'm really able to recover things. And low light and high ISO noise reduction and how the files look, this is kind of how it looks like at different ISO. Let me know what you think. I don't think it's drastically different from a A7 IV in terms of high ISO, but it looks good and it's usable. And I always use my cameras at 25,000 ISO. I know it sounds crazy, but if and only if I know I don't have to do a lot of shadow recovery or highlight recovery in post-production, meaning I have to shoot really on point to what I want to get. While we're talking about sensor, let's talk about the IBIS, because the IBIS has been improved from the A7 IV, which had 5.5 stops of dynamic range. Now we move to 7.5 stops in the center and 6.5 on the corners, on the sides, on the periphery of the sensor. I will say it is good, but it wasn't as good as my experience with the A7R5. I was able to shoot handheld at 1.6 seconds and get a sharp photo, but anything below or like under 1.6 seconds, honestly, I was struggling a little bit to get it sharp. It was really hard. And so I kind of stopped around 2 seconds, and then after it was getting blurry in all circumstances. But with the A7R5, I was able to go to 3 seconds. So the A7R5 is rated 8 stops. This is 7.5. So maybe a small difference, but on the field, honestly, it feels good. It feels good that it's better stabilized. Let's be honest, is it something that is like life-changing for photo? Not so much if you go from 5.5 to 7.5, but for video, it is extremely nice to have better stabilization. Whether you're in active, dynamic, there's different modes that you can use. And honestly, it's cool. It's cool to use, and it's a nice welcome improvement. Something I did not expect find on this camera that I absolutely love is the pre-capture and the 30 frames per second raw burst, because now we kind of feel like we have a mini A1 II in our hands. 30 frames per second in raw, wow, amazing. And also pre-capture. So do I need an A1 II now? No, absolutely not. It will do things that this camera can't do, sure. But for the price point and for the usability and for the wide range of the market, I would say this camera is going to be pretty amazing, because you can tap your toes or dip your toes now in wildlife photography very, very easily thanks to the pre-capture. If you don't know how pre-capture works, it basically allows you to take a photo before you take a photo. So how does this work? The way pre-capture works is that, let's say there's a bird on the tree. You want to take the photo of the bird flying off that tree, right, of that branch. Well, you're gonna have to be perfectly synced with the bird when you take the photo. But with pre-capture, you can constantly press your shutter or your AF button, and the camera will literally record photos and buffer them continuously. And you can choose from 0.05 seconds all the way to 1 second, which means you can go 30 frames backwards in time. And honestly, that just makes you an amazing wildlife photographer, because you never miss the moment in a way. Even if you missed it, you didn't miss it thanks to pre-capture. Pretty cool. But with all that coolness comes also a few drawbacks I'm going to share with you in a minute, because that pre-capture and burst mode sometimes a little complex to use. I'll tell you why. Next on the list, we have power management. Because of the changes of sensor and processing and algorithms, you have better power, meaning you have better power management, which means your battery takes you further. Still the same battery. I absolutely love that they don't change the batteries constantly. Same lovely battery, and now it just takes you further. I was shooting on the field in the streets of LA, and I really felt that it was working for me longer. So that's great. And in the streets of LA, I got downpoured on for over an hour or two with like heavy rain, and I had the camera in hand, and I was shooting constantly with it with the 7200 V2 and this camera. And you know what? The camera didn't die. The camera was fine. The camera performed incredibly well while being completely soaked, and that tells you that the wireless sealing that's in this camera is actually great. So I'm happy to report to you that you don't have to go and put your camera through that, because I did it, and you should be fine. So you don't need to carry 6 umbrellas when you go out and there is a light drizzle. You can feel confident that your camera will be fine and it will survive the elements. Yeah, so you may be wondering, what about autofocus, Pierre? You haven't talked about autofocus. That's true, I haven't talked about it. You see the overcast is like really dark. It makes my eyes so dark right now. So I haven't talked about autofocus for a simple reason right now. That reason is that, well, there's nothing too exciting. It works great. It's still working great. It works great on all the Sony cameras, I will say, and it's still working perfectly on this one. All right, we gotta be honest here. I'm editing the video. The autofocus has been improved. You may have seen some tests. Yes, it is more reactive. The AI autofocus, especially that wasn't present on the A7 IV, is really good and locks in on subject, even if obstacles go in front of it. But I will say most photos that I miss are not because of the autofocus in the camera. It's because of how I use it most of the time. It's because I don't have the right settings, or I don't use the right zone, and I'm a little slow. So at the end of the day, your skills with the autofocus is the one thing that you should be mastering, because we've been taking great, sharp photos in focus for years and years and years, no matter what circumstances. So all those advances will make it easier and simpler for everyone, but it won't replace the skill. So I just want to point it out. I don't think it's a necessary upgrade just for the autofocus. I think the upgrade of our skills is more important than upgrading the camera right now if you have issues with autofocus. But you know what? My little secret right here, I still go back to point focus and point tracking. Yeah, all the time. Why? Because I like to be precise and I like to know exactly where my focus point is. But I have a little cheat code for you that I'll share in a different video on how I set up this A7V. I think it will help you a lot, avoid some mistakes and get your hands on your camera. Now, what about the bad points? What did I not like? I've got a few things for you. Let's do it right now. But know before that all my photos that you've seen here and all my videos are edited with my Lightroom presets. I use them every single day. They save me time and help me nail the right style. You can grab them with the link below in the description, and hopefully they will serve you well. Now, what I didn't like about it, this camera has still a UI and UX for the menus and just operating in general that is really lagging. It's not very intuitive at all. And I really felt it. There are more and more options that are being added to the camera, and the UI is not getting easier, which means you're fiddling through menus constantly, and sometimes you have twice the same thing in the menus and you don't know why. It's kind of frustrating sometimes, and I wish it was a little easier to navigate. I will say also that when we're talking about menus, watered down, still can't add more than 3 letters for photo names, and index resets at 9999, and can't handle set date plus title mode like in video. And then here's the funny part. Still in video, still can't have video files organized by date folders like the photos. So it's like you have good things in the photo, good things in the video, but basically those two good things are not able to be used in both modes. So it's kind of frustrating. And then something that really came up for me while using the camera, and this hopefully will be fixed with the firmware. So there is no way to auto switch between mechanical and electronic shutter, except that if you're using the speed burst mode. So if you set it to a button, for example, and you're like, I want to go to 30 frames per second, it will switch from the mechanical shutter to the electronic shutter. But for some reason, you can't tell it to also save the fact that you want pre-capture or not. So it's kind of a trick now that you have to do is you have to turn on pre-capture when it's in an electronic shutter. Then if you want to use mechanical, you go back to mechanical shutter while leaving the pre-capture on for electronic shutter. And then when you're pressing your speed burst mode, your speed boost mode, well, then you'll have the electronic shutter with the pre-capture. But let's say you didn't turn on the pre-capture because you're using your electronic shutter in normal times without pre-capture. Well, if you're using that speed burst, speed boost button, you won't have pre-capture. Does that make any sense? Anyway, I'm just saying the UI could be a lot easier, and I gave that feedback to Sony, so hopefully we'll see a firmware update around that. There's nothing groundbreaking about the user experience of holding the camera. Apparently there's a bevel that's been improved. I cannot even feel it. We have 2 memory cards. We have the CF Type A slot 1, and then we have SD card for both slots available also, very helpful. And we've got something new that I didn't know I needed, but maybe some people do. It's the USB Type-C, 2 ports, and that's pretty much it. Then we have the main HDMI and all the connectics I am used to. Another downside that people will point out is the 4K 120 is cropped. But part of me is like, we had 4K 60 frames per second cropped on the A7 IV, so this is an improvement already, and well, 4K 120 cropped, why not? Really cool feature also is the AI auto framing. I just tried it here and it will really frame me well. I'm shooting with the A7S III most of the time, so I can't really do that. It's not an option, but I could see myself using that if I was shooting all the time alone. Pretty cool. Now, who is this camera for? Well, kind of everyone. Someone like me who likes to travel, who likes to take photos in the streets, who wants to dip his toes into wildlife photography, birds photography, Now with pre-capture, with a burst of 30 frames per second in RAW, that is incredible. You can do it. You can absolutely do it. Wedding photography, no problem. I don't really see where this camera would limit me at this very time and point, unless I was doing high-speed sports, then I would go for an A9 III, or I needed 8K video and I needed everything the best and higher resolution for the images, because I forgot to mention we're at 33 megapixels, then I would go to A1 II that has 50 megapixel that are available. But honestly, this really feels like the camera we've been waiting for years, and I'm glad we waited. And honestly, let me know what you think in the comments. I think it's a really cool addition to the lineup of Sony, and it will do a killing. Now, before we part, make sure you grab my free photography cheat sheet that is in the description, and make sure you watch that video to learn which settings you need to change on your Sony, and watch this one if you want to avoid the 3 biggest mistakes we make as photographers. Now get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.